Welcome to Sports Scope, the most influential sports talk show in the nation.
What is today, the 19th?
Stay tuned for updates and great sports content.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sports Scope. I'm your host, Robert Butler, on this 23rd day of July. It is the start, folks, of NFL training camps around the NFL. I got a few observations right off the bat. I'll tell you, I think that, this Carolina team, keep an eye out for them. Bryce Young, that Carolina team, got a gut feeling about them. Also Jordan Love, he is looking to be holding out. Got some interesting takes on that about what he's supposed to get. He's a hold in. Jordan Love is at practice, but he is not. He's not practicing. He's just there in present, folks. So, going to talk a little bit about that. There was a story interview with Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley on his version of what happened there. There was an interview with Diane Rossini on her podcast, the Scoop Podcast. I'm trying to find my notes here for it, and I can't find it, but I'll find it here in just a second. But anyways, so he want to get some takes there on him and get some thoughts on, are running backs now a bargain with the exuberant quarterback pricing and or wide receiver pricing and whatnot? Are they considered a bargain? Talk about that here in just a little bit. Let's take our own first and only break. I'll be back here after a few quick announcements, and we'll hit the ground running here on Sports Scope. Hello, Sports Scope followers. The program has seen tremendous growth since going 5 days a week. I just wanted to thank everybody for your cash contributions and sharing the program with friends and families. Just a reminder, if you want to contribute to the program, go to the Cash App, the cash sign, and Sports Scope. There are other ways to contribute to the program listed at the bottom of the screen. If you want to advertise on the program, go to sports, that is sports with an S, another S, scope, SKOPE, at gmail.com, just like it's listed at the bottom of the screen. Thank you and enjoy the program.
Okay. I'm Mac, CEO of National Streaming Sports and host of the Mac and Jack Sports Show. You're watching the sharp-dressed man and the big story breaker, Robert Butler, on Sports Scope, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern on National Streaming Sports. Thanks.
All righty then. Thank you, Mac. I appreciate that endorsement. All right. Okay. Not sure where to start, but I think I'll start here with at a Green Bay, Wisconsin. Jordan Love's contract situation, he's a hold in. Mind you, folks, that the guy was drafted, I want to say, 2020 and whatnot, or 2021, excuse me. Been on the bench for 3 years behind Aaron Rodgers. Excuse me. Been on the bench behind for Aaron Rodgers 3 years. Ironically, like Aaron Rodgers was. And then, excuse me, played last year. They end up getting him they signed him. Last year was his 4th year. This year, instead of giving him a 5th-year option year, they go ahead and sign the guy for a very modest, team-friendly, $20-something million contract that would end this year. So they got this guy at a barking rate, per se. We saw him in preseason, did not look too good, if you ask me. If you go back a couple of years ago, the only game that he did play in against Kansas City didn't even look like an NFL quarterback. But then you go until last year, Rodgers leaves. It's Jordan's team. They're the youngest team in the NFL. The youngest team, Pickles, to make it to the playoffs since 1970. Average age, if I'm not mistaken, 25 years old on this team. A lot of young upstarts on this team. You got guys, first and second year players here. Wide receivers, tight ends, running backs, all on rookie contracts in front of him. Some of the guys were rookies last year, your Jaden Daniels of the world and whatnot. And here, there we go. When he played in 21, again, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, quarterback rating is 68. So you could see it looked like he was not going to make it. But fast forward to last year, 32 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, quarterback rating of 96. And you look at, again, average age 25.58 for the team. So you've got a young team, an ascending team that is around him. You got a young ascending player. His stats aren't overwhelming, but if you look at the fact that he made big plays in big games, for example, the Lions game, Thanksgiving Day, big plays right off the bat, him and Christian Watson, big plays early, Pickles, 50-yard passes, really coming up in the big moments here for Jordan Love. Essentially, the team is watching him mature before their eyes. There is a speculation that Jordan Love will get signed, according to Brian Gutekunst, the general manager up there. And I'm trying to get you an estimate of what they're looking at for Jordan Love. And they're looking at in the ballpark of, I want to say this is from SportsIllustrated.com, 4 years, $224 million. That's around 52, 53 years. So you're in the ballpark there of a Joe Burrow, of a Trevor Lawrence, of a Jared Goff. And it's simply just the market. I wouldn't want to pay him that much per se, judging by just his small sample size. But they're looking at, they see him every day. They have to be super. Think about this. If he does get, and I think he probably going to get this week. If you look at it, Green Bay has to draft. They have to develop. They have to be patient. I remember when they re-signed Aaron Jones, and I thought, man, you want to sign another running back like that to a second contract once you just let him walk? But that turned out to be a good signing. He played a good 3 or 4 years later. Now I think he's signed elsewhere, within the division. So you just get a sense that they trust him, that he's grown with this team. He come from a guy that was looking to be a lot of people, myself included, really thought that he was just going to be a bust at one point, But I'm trying to go back to these big games. Note, folks, that they beat this team. Beat Kansas City on Sunday Night Football, Pickles, if you recall. They beat Detroit at Detroit on Thanksgiving Day. Detroit, a very good team there. They beat the Rams 20-3. Now, they did lose, and you could see still growing as we're watching the end of this season that this team did lose at home to Tampa Bay 34-20. They did lose at the Giants 24-22. That's him getting a little too confident. That's just him in this squad, and it's a young team, folks. One of the youngest since 1970 to make the playoffs. They go on the road and beat Detroit on a Thursday night. They come back the next Sunday and beat the freaking Kansas City Chiefs, the team that later on went on to win the Super Bowl. But then they lost to the Giants, a team that picked, number 6 overall. And then, of course, they lost at home to Tampa in December. That's December in Lambeau Field. So that's that up and down that young, talented teams do. They're feeling themselves a little too much. But then they go on a winning streak, beat Carolina, Minnesota, and Chicago. And then we saw what they did to Dallas. 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 157.2 quarterback rating for Jordan Love. The team goes on and wins 48-32, and it really wasn't that close. So they're looking at all this body of work from him, and they're saying, listen, we've molded this guy. We've molded these players around him, and we're going to take a chance on him. And you know what? I guess I can't really argue with it. You know, I can't. The market is what it is. If that's true, it's going to be around 50-something million. And it's the Green Bay Packers. It's the team that saves up and buys everything cash. No owner. They're up in Green Bay, right? Smallest city in all of pro sports. One of the coldest cities in all of pro sports. They play outdoors. Maybe they need a dome. But the locals love it. They love it. And, you know, Pickle says he may be there's a story out yesterday that Stephen Jones said he's going to be the owner. I mean, Jerry's not getting any younger. He's like, 81, 82 years old. Stephen Jones says this 18-game schedule is going to be inedible. We're going to get an 18 schedule before the next collective bargain agreement coming up in, I think, 2030. I've read that story 2 or 3 times in the past couple of weeks. So if you sign a quarterback anywhere from 52 to 53 million that you consider to be a franchise quarterback, with that 18 game handed on, your cap goes up tremendously. It very well may be a bargain. They got him for a bargain this year. If they sign him, and they're going to look to go far this year. They signed Josh Jacobs from the Raiders. Okay. They have revamped their offensive line, even though they lost Bakhtiari, and Bakhtiari had been hurt, but they've revamped that. We saw what they did last year. We saw the run they went on. We saw the dividends pay out from the Devontae, which I said would pay out, by the way, from the Devontae Adams trade. They got plenty of ballers there at tight end, multiple wide receivers. You know, when you hug up to one wide receiver, then they start talking about another guy. You know, the second buy, you're talking about $1 million extra plus you add that into the revenue, which is split with the players, which jacks the salary cap up even more. Went up an extra $30 million this past year that it wasn't supposed to. So the Packers are looking ahead. They're always dotting their I's and crossing their T's. Their management people, their scout, all those guys have been there for years and years. Kudenko's been there well over 20 years, and he seemed like a kind of a young guy. I think he learned under Ron Wolf, the guy that brought in Favre and all those guys. So if it happens, I would endorse it. You know, if you build it, they will come. And it's going to happen probably this week. Okay, now, speaking of young quarterbacks, there was a funny video, Pickles, going out of Bryce Young coming in. Happy training camp day to everybody, by the way. Training camp has started for all 32 teams here on July the 23rd. We are full throttle. I was driving today, Pickles, and I was driving off of 445 Great Circle Road, which is the road close to Metro Center here in Nashville, Tennessee. What let's see, where is it at? 445 Great Circle. Yeah, off of around 1 o'clock Central Time here in Nashville, and I'm driving to the Vanderbilt lab. I got this Ferrari behind me. This dude is flying. He's and he's right up on my rear end. I'm thinking, all right, it's 1:05 and you're late for the first day of practice. I know it's one of those Titans, Pickles, because I pulled over to the right-hand lane and he shot by me speeding on that Great Circle Road, which is right by Metro Center where the Titans complex is. And he had Pennsylvania tags, so I have to go look up and see who's already bleeping up on the first day of Titans camp. No, I let him get by. I don't want to get in trouble. I know he was running late. I think maybe Brian Callahan gave him a lunch break, and he's probably a young player, and he don't realize the traffic on Metro Center. You go to that Chick-fil-A, you're never going to make it back in time. You know, all those restaurants, whether it's at Taco Bell, the Chick-fil-A, that Starbucks or whatnot, in that area, it's really hard to get back in time. Now I let him get by. I got in the right-hand lane. He scooted on by in his black Ferrari, so I know it was one of the players. But anyways, so there's a funny video going out. I thought it was fake, but I looked at it closely and it wasn't. Bryce Young, former number 1 overall pick. He's walking into training camp with a backpack on, and the meme on it is like 7th grader on the first day of school. I mean, the guy's every bit of 5'9", 5'10", but he's slumping over. He looks like he's about my height, about 5'7", 5'8", when he's slumping over with his backpack on. Didn't even look like a high school student walking into training camp today for the Carolina Panthers. Bryce Young, last year's former number 1 overall pick, going into his second year. And I saw the jokes, read the jokes, and I got to thinking, nobody, and I'm going to try to possibly get Sonja Pearson. She's originally from Charlotte. Does a show on like I do on XApp, and of course here on Facebook and everything, YouTube. Prim and Proper Sports there. Sonja Pearson, and talked to her about the Carolina Panthers. They could have a breakout season with him. You know, I got the reading. You know, they got this head coach here, Dave Canales, who Baker, offensive coordinator from Tampa last year, folks. And, you know, I'm looking at Baker Mayfield's stats. And this guy, and I'm following him on the X out, Dave Canales, the head coach now, was the offensive coordinator for Tampa. Really smart guy, goes over your diet and everything. He's just really attention to detail guy, you know. Just listening to him, really intelligent, and following him and looking at Baker Mayfield's stats. But by the way, another guy that was short, thought he was washed up. You all, and I own it when I'm wrong. I said they'll be picking number 1 overall. Todd Bowles will be fired, and Mayfield will be a backup somewhere, or he'll be in the USFL or one of these semi-pro leagues. With his attitude and lack of athleticism. None of that happened. Mayfield has a career year last year. Let's see if I got this right here and make sure I got this squared away. Yeah, 64%. That is a career high completion percentage. 28 touchdowns. That's a career high. 10 interceptions. That's the best touchdown interception ratio he's ever had. 4,044 yards. And remember, they went up there, gave Detroit all they can handle I picked Detroit in that game, but I was a little nervous per se. And you look at Bryce Young. Bryce Young was very accurate. That's why he was the number one pick. That's why he did win the Heisman Trophy. He's just a really small guy. He's delicate. You worry about him getting hurt. I think he got banged up. He only missed one game last year. He knew guys like me were going to hammer him if he missed multiple games to say, "We told you so." Same thing with Kyler Murray. But that being said, the guy's a lot more mature than Kyler Murray. I did notice that the Panthers did get Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson out of Pittsburgh, a very talented yet immature receiver, needed a change of scenery, got traded away from Pittsburgh. Plus, they didn't have any consistency at the quarterback position in Pittsburgh. We know that. Now, looking back, they moved off their quarterback, right? So, and then they drafted Xavier Legette, first-round pick out of South Carolina, all right? And I would not be one bit surprised if this guy does not have a breakout season and Carolina wins the division, although Atlanta looks to be the favorite as of right now. By the way, I totally subscribe to Pro Football Focus. I'm going to get you all the exact rankings of offensive line rankings from Pro Football Focus. Could not do that before. I have went on and paid that. I've been out advertising some of my shorts here of the program, and I appreciate everybody sharing these things here on different social medias. But, this guy, it depends on his line play, but coaching's a big deal. Coaching is a big deal. These offensive-minded head coaches, you want an offense, and this guy's a good coach. He's a good coach, I do think that I think he's going to do something with Bryce Young. He's got a lot to prove. He's got to have a chip on his shoulder. He pushed himself to come back, and he did to Young's defense. He did come back and play pretty decent last year. He wasn't that bad. If you look at his actual numbers, he wasn't as bad as I originally thought. 11 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. He's a rookie. And the 59% completion percentage. Could he get that up to 64? Well, if you look at Baker Mayfield, his second year in the league, he had 59%. He had 57% when he went to Carolina under another coach. So, yes, he could get his completion percentage up. I think the game will slow down for him. They still got Adam Thielen, who's a little bit long in the tooth, but they've also got Jonathan Mingo. He's a second-year player who they drafted early last year's draft. Not this past year, but in 23. Players make their biggest jump from year one to year two. So I'm really interested in this team to see how they're going to do. And not to mention, they've got Andy Dalton as a backup. Now, I don't think, only way Dalton plays is not unless Young gets hurt, per se. But if you look at those numbers I just mentioned, 11 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, you would think that Bryce Young had a horrible year, 5 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, some crazy number like that as a rookie, but he didn't. He had a pretty decent year there, all things considered. And they, by the way, they got Miles Sanders and Jonathan Brooks. They got a good running back room. Brooks is a rookie there, second-round pick out of University of Texas. Another guy that can run like the wind blows. So keep an eye out for the little kid that looks like he's in 7th grade, play big boy football coming up here in 2024. I do think so. And of course, I've got my football magazines. I'm going to break down every division as we go. But this is a guy that has the potential to have a big breakout season. Yeah, Deontay Johnson, a lot like those other Pickle says, got too many drops. Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson, Antonio Brown, great athletes, really good prospects. All of them had some type of maturity issues in the past. Plaxico Burress, when he was a Steeler, maturity issues. Grew up when he went to the Giants, other than shooting himself in the leg, played pretty well, ended up getting a game-winning touchdown in the Super Bowl there. But there's something about those Pittsburgh receivers, Steelers, very talented, but just can't get right from emotional perspective, if you ask me. But we'll see how that one plays out. Again, that, of course, like I said, Xavier Legette, very fast receiver out of South Carolina for the Carolina Panthers. Not to mention Jonathan Mingo, who's starting to develop some chemistry there at the very end there for the Panthers, and Tommy Tremble there at tight end. So that's something that we'll keep an eye out for. And Dave Canales, the more I think about that guy, the more I think he may be a breakout coach as well, kind of a diamond in the rough. The flip side is, does Baker Mayfield take a step back? And my thing is, he's never put together 2 good seasons in his career. So my guess is he will, even with Mike Evans, who's getting a little long in the tooth there, Godwin, who's been hurt as well, and they've changed offensive coordinators. But I love Todd Bowles, but I got to call a spade a spade. Not sure if Tampa is going to bounce back the way people think they will, per se. Okay? And again, I'm going to try to bring in Sonja Pearson within the next week or so, get her thoughts on my session that assessed that they could be one of those surprise teams that really break out and make a playoff push this year that nobody's talking about. The Carolina Panthers, the team had number 1 pick that went to the Bears, mess around and possibly go win the NFC South, which is still wide open. You know, if you think about it, no team is really going to run off with it per se. Although I know Atlanta's going to be the big favorite coming in, but mind you, folks, defensive-minded head coach Kirk Cousins coming off of I want to say Achilles injury there, so you got to keep that. I know they got a good offensive line and everything. Love Bijan Robertson. Love their leading receiver as well, and plus they got some. They do got a young quarterback, but I don't know if he's going to play this year. Anywho, okay. Look, people going to think, man, is this different take Tuesday for me? Listen, I like to give different perspectives. I like to see the big picture, and I'm always changing my opinions based on new information, right? Changing my opinions based on new information. Saquon Barkley, he gives his side of the story. He was on a podcast with Diana Rossini called Scoops Podcast, like getting a scoop for a big story for The Athletic. Subscribe to The Athletic too. Really good site there for insight here. And he's saying the Giants were just playing up for the cameras. They didn't really want to sign him. And my whole point is, and I'll make a bigger point here in just a bit, maybe they should have signed the guy. You know, you start looking at some of what these receivers are making, maybe they should have signed him. But listen up. Here's Diana Rossini talking to Saquon Barkley, because we've been playing the Giants side of it, and it didn't look good for Joe Sheehan, the general manager. But check this out. Let's play it if I can find it. Boy, I hope I didn't mess this thing up. I've got so much screenshots on here. That was the first story I worked on. Oh, here we go. Saquon Barkley and Diana Rossini from the Scoops Podcast here.
That year.
Why?
Because I feel like it was more like, it actually was real, like I said, like and this Hard Knocks, like, you know, my name, like the episode that I saw was Barkley. Like you would think, like in the media.
He was talking about last year when he said the Giants were interested last year. They ultimately franchised Barkley. He said this year they're just playing up for the cameras. Just give you a little context on what they're talking about here.
It was talking about a lot, but like in reality, like the Giants, and that's really
there wasn't that much.
Yeah, it wasn't
going
really.
on.
Yeah, it wasn't really that much. Like when I sat down with my family, and we were making the decision to see where we're going to go and pick out of the 3 teams where we had our final 3. Like the Giants weren't even one of those 3 because, like I said before,
the New York Giants were never on the table for you to sign with the team.
So like it's like I guess the Hardness did a really good job, and like it looks juicy. It looks like it was like, oh, like okay, like there's actually could have been a thing, and like they pulled out the last second. Like reality, like it never really wasn't. Like the whole time, like my agent talking on our side was like, we don't think that the Giants are even gonna do anything. So like when I'm sitting down with my family making a decision, it was more for like, all right, what's these 3 teams, and let's see what the reason why we should go here and why we shouldn't. Obviously, thankfully, it ended up being Philly. But yeah, I think before it would have been better because like last year there's more action, there's more more juice.
I thought that was funny. Last year's more juice. They're just jerking my chain here, wasting my time. Okay, so ultimately, the guy's making like $12.5 million a year. The Eagles go ahead and sign him. Really easy choice. The Eagles obviously are a better team. I love me some Howie Roseman, one of my favorite general managers in the NFL. That being said, and plus they're just a better roster per se. But the guy went to Penn State. He's a Pennsylvania native. So this is a big coming home party to a better team who paid $1 million more in guaranteed money that I talked about last week. Now, okay, think about, and I'm watching this wide receiver documentary thing on Netflix. All right. We've talked about the highest paid wide receivers in the game and everything. And you've got guys like Justin Jefferson making $35 million a year for the Minnesota Vikings. Okay. His teammate now, his new teammate for Saquon Barkley is making $32 million a year to $12.5 for a Barkley. Alamon St. Brown, $30 million. Tyreek Hill, $30 million. And we're talking 5 years ago, just 5 years ago, these salaries were on the average of $18 to $20 million. I mean, these are big jumps, man. Big jumps for the wide receiver market here. But if you look at, on the other hand, the highest paid running back, pass catching running back, Christian McCaffrey, may be the most important player, not named the quarterback, of course, Brock Purdy, making $19 million, followed by 15 from Alvin Kamara, 14 from Jonathan Taylor, and 12.6. This is from Front Office Sports. To the exact 12. So 12.6 for a pass catching Saquon Barkley. If you really think about that and compare it to the $34 million for a top end wide receiver like a Justin Jefferson, that 12.5, that's a bargain. Now ideally, in an ideal world, we would love to live in an ideal world, right? But ideally, like I said about most of these wide receivers and running backs, you would like to have like a late first round or second round pick the year before. You really don't want to, and I wanted to correct myself from last week. I got to thinking about it. You really don't want to be led by a rookie running back, not unless you got a veteran to back him up, because rookies aren't used to the 17 games or whatever, the extra games played in the NFL. And it's only 2 or 3 more now since college has gotten so much has been added. No, but it's still a NFL game. So you would ideally like to have, if you know you're going to move on your star running back, say you pick up his 5th-year option, like a Saquon Barkley or whatever, and you know you want to move on from him. Ideally, you would like to just let him go to free agency or whatever, or try to trade him for somebody. If you let him go to free agency, you get a compensatory pick the next year, or you trade him somebody like I thought they should have done this past year, so he can't torch him, which he probably will. And then you got that other running back coming into year 2 that you drafted the year before that's taking over as that's ideally. But if you have to use that 1st or 2nd round pick per se, if you have to use that on an offensive lineman, which would take higher priority in my opinion, even if it's a guard or whatnot, or if it's a defensive lineman, an edge rusher, if one falls down, or even another wide receiver per se, if you're doing the same thing with your wideout. But wouldn't you rather pay a pass-catching running back that is durable, that is consistent, 12.5 versus 30, which is that 28 to 34? That's what the top wide receivers are going for. It's simple math, That's simple, especially if you know you've got another receiver that can play. And this used not to be the case. It used to be really close. You got running backs making 15. The running back markets went down. And I wanted to credit a guy like a John Middlecoff. He's a former scout. He was on the Colin Cowherd show, and I want to give him credit for that. He mentioned that last week, and I'm watching this wide receiver thing, and I'm reading over Justin Jefferson. Yeah, I'm reading over Justin Jefferson's contract. I'm thinking, man, 34. He only played 10 games last year. He's a great player, a really good player. He's going to sell a lot of jerseys. He's got good parents. I mean, I'm watching the documentary. He's part of it. Good guy, good family. Brothers play for LSU. He played for LSU. I think his dad was an athlete, basketball player, whatever. But the skyrocket inflated value on a receiver, if you got a young quarterback that you're trying to groove in, now I don't really take. I'm okay with the Titans bringing in a guy like a Pollard when they already had a Spears because they got a 2nd-year quarterback. So these running backs are turning into bargains when your receivers are practically double in some case. I mean, think about Barkley. Barkley was without his injuries, he was compared to at one time to a Christian McCaffrey. He had a bad quarterback, and they've had an awful offensive line. So maybe I was wrong. We'll see. I mean, he could play really well. I wouldn't have drafted him number 2 overall. I'm not going to go that far. I still say he was overdrafted. He was drafted over Quentin Nelson, who may be a Hall of Famer at guard there. He was drafted over Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, turned out to be a pretty good player, even though I was down on him at the time. A lot of good players that Saquon Barkley was drafted over. You got guys like Nick Chubb, drafted in the 2nd round, had better stats. But that's just me. That's just me. But that being said, maybe the Giants pull that off again. They got another bargain, man. They got another bargain. And yeah, they earn their money when it's cold outside, when you need that first down, when you go into a game when it's cold, it's windy, you cannot get the ball downfield, when you need a LaShawn McCoy to run the rock in the snow in Buffalo, right, Pickles? When you need a Le'Veon Bell to take the swing passes and beat a Buffalo team led by a Pittsburgh team led by just Roethlisberger throwing swing passes all day to Le'Veon Bell and getting your fantasy owners 45 fantasy points. I remember that. Those guys do that. So it's getting them under 20 million. That's the top guys. The rest of everybody else is around 14 to 12 and a half. So we'll see how it plays out. Anyways, it's always the value. It's everything is about value, folks, if you ask me. All righty then. Okay. Oh, check this out. There was a basketball game over the weekend. WNBA. This is one of those things where I read it and I didn't get it. I didn't believe it. I did not believe it. A lot of stuff happened this way. I didn't believe it, but I had to. So the WNBA All-Stars end up beating the WNBA Olympic team. It's some kind of scrimmage game or something. And the All-Stars were led by Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. The two rookies, yeah, that's true. The two rookies that did not get picked on the Olympic team, particularly Caitlin Clark. Now, mind you, way back in June, when these selections were being made around the first week of June, Clark had just got into the league. She was leading the league, I want to say, in turnovers, 6-7 turnovers a game. Her timing was a little off. The timing on the pass was a little off. She didn't get picked for the Olympic. A lot of the media made a big deal of it. I said what I heard her say, and I kind of thought to myself, I believe her, that she was tired and she wasn't really, she wanted to be on the Olympics, but she just finished March Madness in April. And then 2 weeks later, the draft happens, then the season happens. Oh, excuse me. A day later, the draft happens. Then 2 weeks later, training camp, and then they start the season. There's no 2 or 3 month layoff like it is in the NBA. The WNBA picks right up where the college left off, and this girl's running ragged. Not to mention the fact she just finished a long basketball regular season, plus a long tournament run, plus a championship run, getting beat in the national championship game. She says, I was too tired, Not to mention the fact she's going into a bigger, faster, stronger lead in the WNBA, and you got all these haters. They're really jealous because of all the hype she's getting. She gets them private jets. She's got multi-million-dollar contracts, endorsement deals, and whatnot. They're 4 times the arenas. She's getting all this on her. She's a lot of envy and everything, but she's also turning the ball over a lot, and she's wearing out. She's emotionally and physically drained. But she catches her second win, folks, okay? Was it a week and a half ago? She gets 19 assists in one game. That sets the record for most assists by any player. Think about this, Pickles. Any player, most assists in a game. So the game is starting to slow down to her. She's starting to, get things going for her. But long story short, her and Angel Reese actually play on the same team. They beat the Olympic team that they were rejected from, and it reminded me of The Last Dance, which I love that doc. I may watch it again, Pickles. I really do. I may watch it again, but I got other stuff I need to watch. I got to finish the wide receiver thing. I digress. So James Worthy played with Michael Jordan in North Carolina. And he says Jordan was getting so much better every single day that Michael was better than me. This guy who later won the 1988 Finals MVP was an all-star in himself, his own right. He said Michael was better than me after 2 weeks. And that's the Caitlin Clark effect. She's adapted that fast to the WNBA. She's going to be a big star. They signed this new multi-billion-dollar TV deal. And someone, there was, I was reading on the internet, maybe it should have been a 4.8 bill or whatever. But it's that big jump that she's making, and think about rookies, particularly in NFL, but especially people like her in general, really, they make their biggest jump from year 1 to year 2. The game slows down for them. They're a little bit more prepared physically. They're more prepared mentally for the longer runs there. So I'm still okay with her getting the time off. I know what it's like to be burned out. I work a lot of hours. I work 3 jobs, folks. Driving for, I've been driving for Uber here on the weekends. And then, I work my day job and I'm putting this show together. I'm cutting this show when I'm not putting it together. I'm advertising different little things. So I understand that. But she's going to be legit. She's not this overrated flash in the pan. The girl's going to be good. And the All-Stars beat the Olympic team. How about that? And Pickle says the only thing she needs is the Gatorade commercial. Like Clark, if I can be like Clark, if I can be like Clark. There you go. There you go. Give me a piece of that. So, anyways, I thought that was an interesting story. Let's see what else we got here on the horizon. I took some people to a concert. I was doing Uber the other night and picked up this older couple around my parents' age, and they were going to the Journey concert. So they got a chance to see Steve Miller Band open up, Def Leppard, and then Journey to end the concert. So we were all humming songs and talking about the best songs of those bands, She's got them on a big jet liner. That's that Steve Miller song. You remember that, Pickles? The big air jet liner taking me too far away. Oh, yeah. Hear what I got to say. Yeah. Other news, Minnesota has signed their they signed their left tackle, $113 million, Christian Dershaw. That's good news if you're a Vikings fan. I tell you what, if you're a fan of any team, any NFL, these aren't the sexiest picks in the world, in air quotes, right? But you getting extensions by the offensive line, those are the positions more often than not, other than quarterback, that I want to extend. That a lot of guys teams are waiting right down to the last hours, Pickles, to the last hour. And I'm just Tom Pelissero says their left tackle Christian Darsaw. 4 years, $113 million, 77 guaranteed, So that one got done here at the last minute. By the way, late report here from Ian Rappaport, Brandon Ayuk. The team has not held extensive contract talks since May because he requested a trade, but he's reporting the training camp. I think Ayuk is starting to hear people like me saying, when you got Brock Purdy on the third year there, when you've got Brock Purdy coming into year 3, you're still not paying him nothing for a while. You probably want to work out something if you're John Lynch, and it's going to be a big number. It's going to be a big number. But a good general manager, he's a pretty good one. I mean, these two, they've been to 2 Super Bowls, 4 NFC championship games. But he came in anyways. Also, Matt Stafford, his feelings were hurt. So the Rams made him feel a little bit better today. Gave him a 4-year, $160 million deal that had 3 years, $40 million for extension he signed in 22. He had only 15 guaranteed after this season, but he's 36 years old. They've adjusted his contract. Now, I don't know if I would have done that, but there's good chemistry with him and this offense and Sean McVay. They like him. They've got Jimmy Garoppolo. By the way, what if he gets hurt? Garoppolo gets hurt all the time. The Rams could be in trouble there, but either way, they extended Stafford. They extended him, and that's right, Pickles. I mean, you look at a team like a Tennessee, they signed Lloyd Cransenberry, the center, and according to Pro Football Focus, I was reading that he's the 10th best center in the NFL. That's a lot better than what they had. He's the 10th best center. That's going to be a good one. Yeah, you want to get your center. That's what a lot of people bringing up about Philadelphia. They think that from what I hear, that their backup center is going to be really good. But Aaron Donald, longtime first ballot Hall of Famer, best. By the way, he's retired from the Rams. Rams might not be that good this year. They're going to be able to score points with Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. And if they can keep Stafford elbow squared away, they're going to score a lot of points, but they might give up a lot too, without Aaron Donald. But Aaron Donald said that Jason Kelce was his best. Jason Kelce was the best offensive lineman that he played against. He said Kelce would always find a way to get a good head of steam and just plow into him. He could never wedge around Kelce like he could other centers in and around the NFL. I've been watching that guy ever since his rookie year with the Rams here. But yeah, so the Titans may have a very good center on hand here. He was one of their first signings here in the NFL. So yeah, the Titans are one of those teams I'll probably talk about again. Maybe bring Rich Ferris back on the program. Get some insight from their camp, see what he's doing. He's got some insight there through Cumulus and 104.5, the zone here. Hopefully tomorrow I'll get my regular suit back here. I had to wear this one today because I was getting it dry cleaned. But anyways, yeah, so you've got a few extra signings here. Stafford, kind of an insurance policy here. There with them and Jimmy Garoppolo but Bay, I mean, he's done a good job. He's done a good job. The Rams had $70 million in money that had to be flushed last year, and they got to the playoffs anyways, and went for a few non-calls on some muggins on Puka Nacua. They may have beat Detroit and went on to the playoffs. Then Detroit's, this year's Detroit narrative wouldn't be what it is, which I think that they'll probably go to the Super Bowl out of the NFC. But that's not official yet. I will do this once the season ends, or the season ends. Once training camp ends, we're getting towards the end of the preseason. Remember, there's no fourth preseason, it's just 3. I'll be able to, around Labor Day, I'll have all my picks in, Super Bowl and everything. But in between times, folks, I want to say this again. I mentioned this with the Mad New Yorker the other day. I've got my Phil Steele magazine. I have not forgot about the college game. I'm going to give you a 12-team playoff, and we'll see how that plays out. Maybe I'll talk a little bit of the college game tomorrow. It was just so many other stories that come about today with contracts doing and whatnot, and training camp starting and everything. I just could not get to everything, but I will get to it. I'm not going to just I'm not just going to let stuff slide here. And of course, we still got some time. We got the whole month of August. The first college games start. Labor Day is a little earlier this year. It's August 31st. So I'll have all those college picks in before that starts up here. But anyways, coming up here towards the end, folks, if you'd like the show, share the show. I'll give you my thoughts on the what Hard Knocks come on tonight and whatnot, and whatever news it breaks, because I got a feeling there's going to be some more big stories to break here in the next 24 hours as far as the NFL is concerned and or college football. Okay. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. I'll see you otherwise tomorrow, same time, same place here on The Real Sports.